I'm going to tell them that I'm a member of the Church of Christ, and I saw me a Savior, and he said he, and it been good, y'all, and it been good, y'all said come on, boy. He's sweet. You see, some of y'all got some kids and you just don't know what to do with them. And some of y'all having some problems. Some of y'all ain't got no job right now. Some of y'all, you just don't know what to do. You just don't know what to do. But one of these days, you're going to testify. You're going to testify. You're going to testify. Wherever you go, you're going to tell them on the job that I done got me. I serve me a Savior. Come on, y'all, sing it with me. Come on, y'all, sing it with me. Jesus is listening. Sing his hand and I want you to know my girlfriend will say, he's sweet. You see, sometimes, it just don't sit right. I've been trying to do my best, but it don't sit right. Sometimes, that really wrongs. I'm a Methodist Christian frame I got, but I can testify. I can testify. Wherever I go, I'm going to tell them I found me. I got me. Church of Christ. Sweet. I I'm singing Mary, Mary, don't you tell them on the mountain, oh, don't you know, Mary, she tell them on the mountain, oh, don't you know, the arrows on the air, don't you know that they are drowned, I'm singing, Mary, don't you tell them all the night tomorrow. We have a program. And during his 30 years here, he assigned a women's counselor. And that certain women's counselor started the program off today with a dance. And I say to you, Brother Stevens, thank you for your 30 years of service. But when I think about goodness and all he's done for me, patiently waiting for the harvest. I've got the Hebrew so nice in here. It's mine. Oh, mine. It's harvest time. Well, I'm standing in your presence. I've been existing on your word. Everything, Lord, you promised to me, I know I'll receive. Oh, yeah. And if it's the Father's real good pleasure, that his whole kingdom is mine. Lord, that is mine. Oh, Lord, it's mine. Come to receive, to receive. Come on, preach out. Patiently waiting, patiently for the harvest. I got a Hebrew, living one, can't faith, my relationship, it's mine. Lord, I believe in him for great things. He promised me a long time ago. I know I'm gonna get it because the Bible tells me so. Now it's Father, real pleasure. Now you come to receive my blessing, patiently waiting, for the harvest. I've got that Hebrews 11:1, the kind of faith, my blessing shall is mine. Oh, man, oh, Lord, come to receive. I'm patiently waiting for the harvest. I've got that Hebrews 11:1, the kind of faith my blessings have is mine. Oh, man, oh, Lord, yeah, I'm standing on His promise. I'm insisting on the word. Everything that I speak, I believe He gave it to me. Now it's the Father, real good pleasure. That the kingdom, it is mine, and it's mine. Oh, mine. Oh, Lord. Well, I believe in Him for very thing He promised me a long time ago. I know I'm gonna get it because the Bible tells me so. Now it's the Father, real good pleasure, that the kingdom, it is mine, and it's mine. Oh, mine. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Come to receive. I'm patiently waiting for the harvest. I've got that Hebrew 11:1. That kind of free. My blessed child is mine. Oh, mine. Oh, Lord. Yeah, there's a blessing. I'm waiting. He told me a long time ago, Lord, get under your window. There's a blessing. My blessing. I'm waiting. Patiently waiting. And it's mine. Oh, mine. Anything. Yeah, it's mine. Oh, mine. Anything. I'm waiting, Lord, it's mine. Oh, mine. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Come to receive. I'm patiently waiting. Oh, for the harvest. I've got that Hebrews 11:1. Kind of faith. My blessed child is mine. Oh, mine. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. I come to receive. I'm patiently waiting. Oh, for the harvest. I've got that Hebrews 11:1. The kind of faith. My blessed child is mine. Oh, mine. Oh, Lord. Well, I'm gonna get it. Gonna get mine, Lord. Patiently waiting, Lord. You taught me a long time ago, Lord. Get under your window, Lord. You'll pour out a blessing, room enough to receive it. I'm patiently waiting, Lord. Gonna get mine, Lord. I'm gonna get mine, Lord. And it's mine, oh, man, oh, Lord, harvest time. I'm a hard-fighting soldier on the battlefield. I'm a hard-fighting soldier on the battlefield. I'm a hard-fighting soldier on the battlefield. Bringing souls to Jesus by the service that I give. I'm a hard-fighting soldier on the battlefield. I'm a hard-fighting soldier on the battlefield. I'm a hard-fighting soldier on the battlefield. Bringing souls to Jesus by the service that I got a helmet on my head. My soul is so sweet. Got a helmet on my head. Jesus by the service that I give. Listen here. We're marching up to Zion. It's a beautiful, that beautiful city of God. We're marching up to Zion. That beautiful city of God. I'm fighting, oh Satan, in the rain, in the cold. I'm fighting so hard, trying to save the soul. When you hear me singing, Lord, sometimes shedding tears, bringing souls to Jesus by the service that I give. Oh, Satan will tempt you in a very wicked way. I'm glad my Bible teaches me don't cease to pray. I've got the word for my sword, and I've faith for my shield. I'm bringing souls to Jesus by the service that I give. I'm a hard-fighting soldier. Fighting soldier, I'm a soldier, fighting soldier, bringing souls to the service that I give. We're marching up to Zion. What a beautiful, that beautiful city of God. We're marching up to Zion. Beautiful city of God. King Jesus is my captain, he fights my battles, captain. He never lost a battle, no, he never got away from my soul. Got my soul, and I got my shield. And souls to Jesus by the service that I give. I'm a hard-fighting soldier, yeah, I'm a hard-fighting soldier. Oh yeah, I'm a soldier. Bringing souls to Jesus by the service that I give. We're marching up to Zion. Beautiful, that beautiful city of God. We're marching up to Zion. Beautiful, that beautiful city of God. Beautiful, that beautiful, wonderful, that wonderful, that glorious, that beautiful city of God. Gotta keep on bringing that beautiful by the city that I give. It's a beautiful, that beautiful city. I'm bringing so that beautiful city of God to that beautiful, that wonderful, that glorious, that beautiful city of God. Jesus by the service that I give. I'm a bringing souls to Jesus by the army of the Lord. I'm a bringing souls to Jesus by the service that I give. Bringing souls to Jesus by the service that I give. Bringing souls to Jesus by the service that I give. Lord, if I could bring one more soul by the service that I give. Maybe that one soul will bring more soul by the service I give. That beautiful, that wonderful, glorious, marvelous, that beautiful city of God, to that beautiful city of God. Relax, let's have a good time. Relax, it's time to get back. Relax, let's have a good time. Relax, it's time to get back. Relax, let's have a good time. Relax, it's time. Go ahead, rock. Relax, let's have a good time. Relax. It's alright. Yeah, it's alright. It's alright. Have a good time. It's alright. Oh, it's alright. I feel that it's alright. Can you sit there knowing God's blessing every day? Yes, moment every day. It is now 7:30 or 7:29. Close enough for us to begin our class. To those of you who are in the electronic audience, Facebook, Zoom, the church's website, YouTube, we welcome you. Those that are in the auditorium or the fellowship hall, and each week the attendance is increasing. But for those of you who are here tonight, I'm glad to see you. I hope you're enjoying the new dish. I've never done this on Wednesday night, but I thought it was good anyhow. But it's my mother's version of beef stew, but you have to add the beef after the fact, because some people don't eat beef, some people don't eat turkey and poultry, and so we've become all things to all people, that we might win some. But I hope you've enjoyed the meal. Let's begin with a word of prayer. Father, we are thankful for the fellowship that we enjoy from week to week. We're thankful that you allow us to come together in this physical edifice and break bread together each week. We pray now that as we break bread around your word, that we will encourage one another, and that we will be lifted up to know that children grow in faith, and we all have the ability to grow a personal faith relationship with you, regardless of our beginnings. Through Jesus, I pray. Amen. As I was looking at part 2 of this lesson, the faith of children, I kind of smiled. As we look at Job and everything that he went through, has anybody experienced what Job experienced? Now, before you answer that, part 2 of the lesson tonight is going to look at the history of Job's family. Now you say, I thought we didn't know much about Job's family. Well, we know Job is in the land of Uz. We know it's in the Idumean area, or the land of the Edomites. And we also know that the Edomites are the descendants of Esau, right? Well, we're going to look at the ancestry of Job. If anybody can pull through the chaos of his ancestry the way he did, oh my goodness. I laugh at my ancestry. It's nothing like Job's. Well, it's kind of like his, but it's not that bad. So
Most of us don't select our families. Would you agree? Most of us didn't create the family events. So whatever your family did, wherever your family went, they didn't ask, at least mine never asked my opinion. As a kid, you just either walked, got in the car, and you moved with your family. Most of us start out trusting family. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. We trust family for protection, for nurturing, for discipline, and for loving unconditionally. That's just what we do. Now, Job received life's basic essentials, or he refused to allow the absence of the basic needs to become an albatross around his neck. Look at Philippians 4, verse 11. Job wouldn't allow circumstances to ever regulate him. How much do you know about your family ancestry? Well, imagine Job. He knew something about his. We all know something, either from reading it, from oral passing it on, somebody has told us about it. But we all know something about our ancestry, right? How many of you actually have had the pleasure of knowing your great-grandparents? Okay, 1, 2, wow, 3, 4, 5, wow. That's impressive. I never met my grandparents. They were dead by the time I was born. But I heard stories about them. That's the same with Job, okay? And we make a choice from the stories. Oh, Philippians 4, verse 11, what does it say? And this is the Apostle Paul talking about how he has learned something. What has he learned? The operative in that verse is, I have learned. It doesn't just happen overnight. We have to give ourselves to developing that. I think Job does that too. He learned, no matter what his family history was, as a child, he had to grow up with it. He had to grow through it. And Job learns contentment. He learns faith. And you'll see in our lesson series how he practices what he has learned. Why would parents name their child Job? Why would somebody do that? Huh? See part of the history? There's something in that name. There was something already in the ancestry of Job. That's why she names him sorrowful, or he that weeps. We can say it was predictive about what he would do, but I think his mother experienced what somebody in that family had already gone through. Like Moses is drawn out, right? But then Moses is going to constantly be put in situations and drawn out. So there's something about this name, Job, he didn't name himself. That's the point. So what would drive somebody to name a baby sorrowful? Something's going on. Or there's some type family history somewhere. Look at Isaiah 53, verse 3. Isaiah says this prophetically about the Lord. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. How did Job's friends start responding to him when things weren't going well? Despised and rejected. The elevation they had for him, how they esteemed him, now all of a sudden they don't. But I wonder if this is the first time this has ever happened. If we were able to look back at the life of the family of Job, you're probably going to discover something has always gone on in the family of Job that creates this environment of instability and yet trust. Instability, and yet, we made it through that. So we're going to trust that we're going to get through this. Have y'all ever been there? On one hand, the next shoe is going to drop. But then on the other hand, you're saying, but it won't be the first time. And people will look at you and say, so why are you holding on to faith? And why are you still walking in courage and walking in strength? And it might be because you've been in this situation before. Makes sense? Now, I don't know. Can you guys see that screen okay? A little bit okay? This goes back to Noah. But what I want you to appreciate is Noah and his family experiences what great catastrophe? A flood. And survived. A man of sorrow, acquainted with grief. When you look at, and the genealogy of Jesus is traced through Shem. So when you look at from Shem to Terah, and all of a sudden God tells Terah and Abraham to do what? Pack up and leave. Pack up everything and leave. Take what you can, but leave everything behind. But you can't disconnect that from what happened to Noah. It's the same family. Have you ever thought, well, maybe one of the encouraging things about Terah leaving is he was thinking about Noah had to leave everything behind too. Noah had to replenish. And maybe Terah and Abram is saying is, well, if Noah could regroup, we can regroup. It's painful, it's uncomfortable, but we've got a family history that says pain and discomfort and recovery is a part of our history. Do you see where I'm trying to go with this? It's part of the ancestry. Now, when you get down to the Edomites, where Job and his family are traceable to, starts the mess in the history of the Edomites? Where does the mess start? Huh? Esau? Oh. Abraham. Abraham does some crazy stuff. You've got Abraham marrying Sarah, but remember there's a famine and they end up in Egypt, right? What does he do in Egypt? Huh? He let his wife go shopping. You know how when you go on vacation and before you get ready to leave, you go shopping, you take souvenirs back? So Sarah wanted to go shopping. And Abraham went along with it. And she decided, I like to bring Hagar back as a souvenir. Y'all don't think that's funny. So Abraham says, okay, whatever makes you happy. He went along with it. Well, Sarah's getting up in age, Abram's getting up in age, and she doesn't have a child. Well, God had promised them a child, right? So what does Sarah decide? Take the souvenir. God is always good. See, Abraham, you may have been uncomfortable with me bringing this souvenir back, but do you see God? See, you knew God had something up. He knew I wasn't going to be able to have a baby. That's why, Abraham, aren't you glad I bought Hagar? Okay. We're old men now. But for you young ladies, y'all always remember what Brother McClure is saying right now, okay? If you don't ever remember anything else Brother McClure say, remember this. When you get married, don't you, and you get a little bit upset with your husband, don't you ever tell your husband, well, you go out there and have sex with another woman, I don't care. He might take you up on it. Don't you ever tell him that. Because he might say, okay. You say, well, why do you say that? What did Abraham say? Okay. Who extended the invitation? His wife. Do you see the chaos? It's chaos. So now you've got the Ishmaelites. Where do the Ishmaelites come from? Ishmael. Who is Ishmael? The son of Hagar. Enough on that. In Arkansas, in Georgia, in Tennessee, and Mississippi, as America was moving westward, some people were pushing the Native Americans off their property. And every time they wanted an area, they would push the Native Americans further west. They settle in places like Kansas and Oklahoma, the Dust Bowl area, but that migration was called the Trail of Tears. Moving all of these Native Americans across country out to your native state. And there was nothing out there, it was just flat land. They had determined it wasn't very farmable. And then years later, they found out oil was under. Oh, okay. Is that better? Okay. Oklahoma is filled with oil. My wife is probably online. and she hates it when I say this, we have an oil well in Oklahoma. We really do. It's producing such a small amount of oil, they don't even send us a check anymore. About 5 or 6 years ago, we'd get a check for $2, $3. But we have an oil well. Oklahoma is still rich in oil. Huh? So you get more than I do. Okay. But look at Ishmael's mother's trail of tears. Look at Genesis 16, verses 6 through 12. And stop me anytime you get ready, okay? Abram replied, look, she's your servant, talking about Hagar. So you deal with her as you see fit. So Sarah treated Hagar so harshly that she finally ran away. Well, who was so in love with Hagar to start with? Sarah. But she now treats her so harshly because she sees that Abram is drawn to that handmaid. The angel of the Lord found Hagar beside a spring of water in the wilderness along the road to Shur. And I think I've got a map to show you. The angel said to her, Hagar, Sarah's servant, where have you come from? And where are you going? I'm running away from my mistress Sarah. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress. Submit to her authority. And he also added, I will give you more descendants than you can count. Now, stick that in the back of your mind. He's promising Hagar prosperity in the midst of her pain. Do you think she sees it? She can't. There's no way she can see the prosperity in that. I'll give you more descendants than you can count. And the angel also said, oh, by the way, you're now pregnant and will give birth to a son. You are to name him Ishmael, which means God hears you. And God's going to hear him. For the Lord has heard your cry of distress. Okay, if God has heard you, then explain this next comment. This son of yours will be a wild man, as untamed as a wild donkey. He will raise his fist against everyone, and everyone will be against him. Yes, he will live in open hostility against all his relatives. I thought you said God hears. Now you're telling my son's going to be crazy. Well, not crazy, but a madman. Who puts this in motion? Abraham and Sarah. Hagar didn't ask for this. But God is promising her everything is going to be okay. But in the midst of her pain, I don't know if she can see that. In Genesis 16, verse 13. Now we're in 16, verse 12. But look at verse 13. Therefore, Hagar used another name to refer to the Lord, who had spoken to her. She said, you are the God who sees me. Huh. Why did she say that? Have you ever felt invisible? I think Hagar did. Taken for granted, minimized. I think Hagar did. I mean, Sarah had gone into Egypt and had taken her out of her country as a bondwoman, right? Well, now here's a problem with that. Who allows their daughter to leave like that? So do you see how she has never been seen? Possibly never been appreciated? So does it make sense for her to say, God, somebody finally recognizes me? For the first time in my life, maybe, you hear me and you see me for who I am. I've been crying out all my life. Nobody listened. I was a nobody. That's why I'm running away. This son of yours will be a wild man, untamed as a wild donkey. And yet she says, but I feel better because I've been heard. Her tears. Let's keep going. Look at Ishmael, her son, chapter 21, verses 10 through 21. So she turned to Abram and demanded, get rid of the slave woman. Now the son is in the picture, right? Before, when Hagar ran off, she was pregnant, right? Now it come to pass, the baby's in the world. Hagar's kind of poking fun at Sarah because she still don't have a child. And the son is poking fun at Sarah. And she comes to Abraham making a demand, get rid of him, get rid of her. He is not going to share the inheritance with my son Isaac. I won't have it. Abraham, I've been on journeys with you. I moved with you, but the buck stops here. I wonder what would have been the consequence if Abraham had told her no. Huh? Slept on the couch in a different tent 10 miles down the road. I wonder if she would have left him. But nonetheless, look at Abraham's response. God told Abraham, do not be upset, the boy and your servant. Don't be upset about this. Do whatever Sarah tells you. For Isaac is the son through whom your descendants will be counted. But I will make a nation of the descendants of Hagar's son, because he's your son too. Wow. Wow. I've got two sisters in Arkansas. And I've got a half sister in Detroit. Out of all of the children my father had, there are only 3 of us remaining. Just 3. With my half brothers and sisters that were living, were we close? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But this is something that was always in place. They were still my father's children. And I couldn't make that go away. They couldn't make it go away. One of my sisters, in fact, the one that's still alive now, Susie, in Detroit, the first time she met my dad was at the funeral. That was the first time she'd met him. And he was 80 years old. But that was her first opportunity to look at him. Okay? Here's why I'm telling you that again. All of us come from families with some Abrahamic stuff in it. But just like Abraham, we survived. We navigated. And as children that are growing up, our faith in God and our confidence in God increases. Out of the context of our crises or our ancestral crises. Is it painful? Yeah. But it's part of our story that helps people understand our tenacity to overcome today. No matter how many times you fall, no matter how many times they pull the carpet from under you, no matter how many times they think the ship is going to sink, you keep coming back. Have you ever wondered where you get that resolve to never quit? It's probably not just because you decided to never give up. Go. Oh, let me make a station break. This is one of the things that we're trying to address with this whole setup is the audience can't be heard in the cyberspace area. So we're trying to address that. But I'll try to repeat what you say. Say good luck. Man, I'm almost as old as your father. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And we can fall, we can hurt, we can cry, but we keep bouncing back. And that's why I want us to look at the history of the ancestry of Job so that we can appreciate better how he's able to endure all of this. Look at this. So Abram got up early the next morning, prepared food and a container of water, and strapped them on Hagar's shoulders. Does this sound like another scene later in Abraham's life? Which one? When he gets ready to sacrifice Isaac. See, he's already been down that road. So when God tells him to get up and offer Isaac as a sacrifice, Abraham already understands the pain of separating from a son. But when we read the story of Abraham taking Isaac, if we don't read this carefully, we'll miss he's tried this, he's done this before. And God prospered the descendants of Ishmael. And that's why Abraham says God will provide the sacrifice. Says, we've been down this road before. Well, who had he been down that road before with? God. Was it a laughable journey? No. Look at this. Then he sent away, then he sent away with their son, and she wandered aimlessly in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water was gone, she put the boy in the shade of a bush. Now I want you to get in the feelings of a mother, okay? Then she went and sat down by herself about a football field away. I don't want to watch my boy die, she said. As she does what? burst into tears. This is the mother. She's heartbroken. She has nowhere to go except to remember what God promised her. I don't want to watch my boy die. But God heard the boy crying. Well, what had she already said about God? He hears me. So God hears the boy crying. The mother's crying 100 yards from the boy, and the boy is crying. That's traumatizing. This is in the ancestry of Job. It's a whole history of pain. But Job does not let it define him. You don't think he knows these stories? He's closer to them than we are. He knows the generational story. Hagar, what's wrong? Now you're Hagar. Abraham's told you to get out because God told Abraham to put you out. And God comes to her and say, so what's the problem? Calm, collected. Okay. Nobody in the cyberspace can see any of you guys, okay? You ever tried serving God and being obedient to God and doing everything right to the best of your ability, and still crazy stuff like this happened to you? And you show up around church folks, and you show up and I'm talking, teaching a Bible class, and I'm telling you about the goodness of God and the grace of God and the mercy of God and how God is always there for you. And you just got the carpet pulled from under you, the chair kicked from under you, people just spit in your face, life just slapped you in your face, and calmly somebody walk up to you and say, what's wrong? Don't be afraid. Don't you trust God? And you want to be a good Christian? Now, nobody can see who's in the audience, right? Have you ever wanted to just tell some of those folks to go jump in a lake? I mean, you know what they're saying is because they care. But at that moment, it's not whether they care. Your challenge is, does God care? Y'all ever been there? I know he said he's the God who hears, but with what I'm going through, does he really hear me? This is in the history of Job. God saying, what's wrong, baby? Don't be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Go to him and comfort him. For I will make a great nation from his descendants. How do you comfort a kid who has no home to go to? Out in the middle of the wilderness, a bag of clothes, no food. And you go to that child and say, it's going to be a brighter day when you get grown. You see, a nation from his descendants, when you get grown and when you have your family, you're talking to the kid about something down the road, and the kid is dealing with pain right now. That's Hagar and Ishmael. What do you say to a child who's hurting? You say exactly what God said to say. It may not make sense to the child right now. It may not make sense to us as adults right now. But we still have a responsibility to teach the child what God has promised in the midst of whatever we're going through. Look at verse 19 of Genesis 21. Then God opened Hagar's eyes, and she saw, guess what? A well full of water. She's out there saying, we're going to starve to death. We're going to die of thirst. And God opens her eyes, points her in the right direction, and says, see, you didn't see that over there, but I did. Does that help you understand that I still care? She quickly filled her water container and gave the boy a drink. What does that tell you in terms of the state of affairs for them at that moment? They were down to their last drop. Now, this passage helps me understand the Beatitudes. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst after righteousness. When we talk about being hungry and thirsty, we talk about, well, I only have 3/4 of a glass of water. Or I've got 2 pounds of meat, and I've got 4 loaves of bread, and I've still got $1,000 in the bank. That is not what that means. When we talk about hungering and thirsting, the way Jesus is saying it in the Beatitudes, he's saying you're 100% broke. You have no food. You have nothing to drink. And you're craving it. Almost like Esau did. You give in, hungering and thirsting. I'm depraved of this. I'm running on air. And I don't know where to go. That's what hungering and thirsting really means. And until we hunger and thirst like Hagar did, like Ishmael did, I don't know whether we cry out to the Lord. I mean, we could pray and we can say, Lord, help me out. Lord, I'm almost down too. But they are out of it. They don't have it. And when she sees that well in verse 19 of Genesis 21, she ran and quickly filled the container and drank some water herself. What does it say? Let me tell you what a parent does. A parent who really loves their children, that parent will starve and let their child eat the last morsel of bread before that parent will eat. I'm telling you that. Even here at church, and those of you who see me, y'all know this. I don't like when we even have a fellowship for all of the grown folks to run up and get food, and the children, those little kids and stuff, are the last one. I don't like that. Well, there are 2 reasons I don't. I wasn't raised that way. People would come to our house or to our home, and my mother would feed us first. Always. She would always feed the children first. She didn't care who the guests were. It could be the preacher. It could be her sister from St. Louis or from California. But when it came time to eat, my mother would always prepare her children's plates first. If food was scarce, even if we didn't have guests, you know who would eat first? My mother would feed her children first. That is still with me. Feed these kids. I can go to Subway and get me a sandwich. Or I can get back there in the kitchen after fellowship or something, and I can figure out how to make a meal. Kids can't. But you see this with Hagar. In the midst of her pain, she makes sure that her son gets fed. And God was with the boy as he grew up in the wilderness. Now, God had already said he's going to be a wild man, right? God promises to be with her, right? But you know what God never does? He never takes them out of the wilderness. That's their home. If God is with us, God is going to be with us wherever we are. Doesn't matter. But that is something that is taught early to children. Well, you know, when you get rich and famous and when you get this education and you get that, God's going to bless you. God's blessing us now. That's where the faith of a child is developed. You don't think Abraham, you don't think Job knew about this story with Ishmael and Hagar? I think he did. Where they were down to nothing. And God showed her a well? Yeah. And she made sure her son got water? Yeah. Well, didn't God take them to a big city? No. They stayed in the wilderness. And they became prosperous in the wilderness. Sometimes we want God to deliver us completely from where we are. He may not do that. But wherever we are, God can still prosper us. Does that mean he will not deliver us from where we are? No. But what if he doesn't? Lord, I want to go so-and-so place. God, I want to live here. God may say that's not in the cards for you. I'll do this slide on Sunday, but I thought it was interesting to throw this in for a couple of reasons. This is the wilderness of Shur, this red line down here. If you look, let's see Beersheba right up there, kind of where the horseshoe is, where Amorites. You see that word Beersheba to the left? That's where Hagar is, all the way out in the middle of nowhere. Where is she headed? Where do you think, okay, where did she come from? Egypt. Egypt. She's trying to get back home. She'll never make it. Home is out in the wilderness, not Egypt. And home is not up in the land of Judah. God told them to leave. And God says, I'm going to put you in a place of isolation, of wilderness, and that's where you're going to prosper. Now, in this same area of the wilderness, on Sunday, I'll show you another map. But guess where that land is on the map today? What do you think is labeled as? Edom. That's where they settle, is in the wilderness. And that becomes the land of the Edomite. which is Esau. That whole area. Now, you see how those tiers are kind of turning a little bit? Look at this. Genesis 27. What time is it? Okay. Genesis 27. Y'all stop me anytime. Verses 34 through 40. When Esau heard his father's words, he let out a bitter cry. Oh, my father, what about me? I said Esau before, I meant Ishmael. Oh, my father, what about me? Bless me too. The story has shifted. We moved from Abraham, we moved from Isaac, we moved from Ishmael, and now we're to Isaac's two sons, Jacob and Esau. Here's another chapter of pain. Esau loses his birthright, okay? He let out a loud and bitter cry. When I told you about the Edomites, now you're seeing another generation of the descent from the Ishmaelites and how this whole thing just keeps messing up and messing up and messing up. But it started with Abraham. Esau exclaimed, and now he's crying, my brothers tricked me. No wonder his name is Jacob, for now he has cheated me twice. These are brothers. Y'all get along perfectly with your siblings. Neither did I. That's just part of growing up. Some do well, some don't do so well. Somewhere in that journey as children growing in faith, somebody has to learn to get beyond that. Some do and some don't. Some children hate their siblings who are now as old as time. And you say, well, so why do you hate your sibling so much? Well, I remember when I was 10 years old. This happened between them, between our parents and Uncle Joe down the street. And siblings grow up angry with each other based on something that happened in childhood. That's Esau and Jacob. But you cannot separate Esau and Jacob from this whole thing with Abraham. So look at the tears. Esau is crying because he's been cheated. Haven't you saved even one blessing for me? Isaac said to Esau. I have made Jacob your master and have declared that all his brothers will be his servants, including you. I have guaranteed him an abundance of grain and wine. What is left for me to give you, my son, says, so you tell me what I've got left. I don't know how else to tell you. No, there's nothing for you. Now, my sisters are probably online tonight down in Arkansas, and they'll tell you this. My brother technically stole the family farm from my daddy. Farm. Technically, he stole it. My sisters, nor me, received 1 square foot or 1 square feet of 40 acres of land. We got none of it. None of it. And we kind of felt like Esau. Don't you have something? My father's response is, nope, your brother's got it all. And he wasn't about to give an inch of it up. But God had heard. And right to this day, my wife and I, between the two of us, we have just about 40 acres of land down in Arkansas. God heard. But did we get it from my father or from my brother? No. There was none left. I could spend the rest of my life being mad at my nephews and my brother. What good is it going to do? God has already said, I heard you. So watch the Esau story. Isaac is saying, I have guaranteed him an abundance of grain and wine. I don't have anything left. Now, if you know of something, Esau, you tell me. Esau pleaded, but do you have only one blessing left? Oh, my father, bless me too. Then Esau broke down and does what? Weeps. This is in the history of Job. Ishmael weeps. Esau weeps. Now is the name Job making a little more sense? Sorrowful. It seemed like all the young men in our family has had trouble. And I'm no exception. You're tracing the ancestry of this man, Job. But it's filled with men weeping and women weeping. So Job has reached the conclusion, evidently, I'm no exception. Because it's happened to the best of us. But God heard them, so God hears me. Chapter 27, verses 39 through 41. Finally, his father Isaac said to him, you will live away from the richness of the earth and away from the dew of the heavens above. Doesn't that sound familiar? What had happened to Ishmael? He was banned to the wilderness, a wild man. Now Isaac is saying to Esau, you will live by your sword and you will serve your brother. But now this is the liberation right here. But when you decide to break free, you will shake his yoke from your neck. The only thing that will keep you a prisoner emotionally is yourself. Whenever you decide that you can be a grown man, functioning, trusting God, and not being mad at your brother, not until you make up your mind will that happen. Boy, that makes a lot of sense to me. People walk around angry, living below their God-given expectations because of what happened to them. And God's message is, if you just get up and walk by faith and trust in me, you'll be fine. But nobody can make you embrace the potential that's in you except you. Do you see that? This is what Isaac is telling Esau. But when you decide to break free, you will shake his yoke. Whose yoke? Jacob's. But until you let that go up here, you'll forever be in chains. Oh my goodness. That's liberating all by itself. Let me show you why. Esau knew his father Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him to Paneram to get a wife. Now, Esau hadn't broken the yoke yet because he's doing some crazy stuff. He heard Esau or Isaac say, you don't need to marry these Canaanite women. So guess what Esau does to get back at his daddy? He marries a Canaanite woman. Who is he trying to hurt? His father. Who does it really hurt? Him. Here's what happened as children are developing faith. And hopefully it's just the developmental phase. To get back at their parents, they'll do things that's detrimental to themselves. To hurt their parents. It's going to hurt the parent a little bit. But you know who it's going to hurt more? The child. Esau thinks he's getting back at his father. So Esau visited his uncle Ishmael and his family and married one of Ishmael's daughters. In addition, what had God already said about Ishmael and his descendants? They'd be wild. So guess what Esau does with his eyes wide open? He goes get him a wild woman. Y'all remember that song, Wild Thing? He does this deliberately. That's his cousin. His new wife's name was Mahalath. She was the sister of Naboth, the daughter of Ishmael, Abram's son. See, I keep telling you this keeps going back to Abraham because what Abraham and Sarah does creates a mess. Now, fast forward, Jacob has been out with his father-in-law. He's grown up. Esau's grown up. Esau's prospering. Jacob has broken the yoke of his father-in-law. Now watch what happens and we'll quit. We'll finish this Sunday morning. Then Jacob sent messengers ahead of his brother Esau, who was living in the region of Seir in the land of where? Edom. He told them, give this message to my master. Wow, Jacob is calling Esau his master? Watch this. Humble greetings from your servant Jacob. Until now, I've been living with Uncle Laban. And now I own cattle, donkeys, flocks, sheep, goats, and many servants, both men and women. I've sent these messengers to inform my Lord, meaning Esau, that I'm coming this way, hoping that you will be friendly to me. After delivering the message, the messengers returned to Jacob and reported, we met your brother Esau, and he is already on his way to meet you with an army of 400 men. Well, what do you think Jacob interprets that to mean? He's headed out here to get you because Esau had said, when the old man dies, I'm going to kill my brother. That's what Esau had promised. Now, watch this. In chapter 33, verse 1, Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with 400 men. Chapter 33, verse 4. Then Esau ran to meet him and embraced him, threw his arms around his neck, kissed him, and they both do what? Weep. What had Isaac told Esau? Until you break that yoke, nobody else can. Now you see what's happened? He's let it go. Jacob is afraid he hadn't let it go. Verse 16, so Esau turned around and started back to Seir that same day. He says, man, I'm blessed down here in the wilderness. I'm good. I bid you Godspeed as well. Don't you like that story? But this is giving you a backdrop into Job's spirit. He has a history of family mess, and yet he has a history of God bringing them through the thing, no matter what it is. So now he's faced with prosperity. He's faced with children partying. And now he's faced with losing it all. And he says, I'll be all right. I don't know what's going on, but I'll be all right. I don't understand why it's happening, but I'll be all right. Well, we'll finish this on Sunday morning. Brother Wutah has already contacted me, and he asked me to wrap up on Sunday morning for him. But we've got time Sunday to do this. I want to encourage you, as I did Sunday. I don't care what you come from. Whether it's your generation, a generation back, 2 generations back, it is what it is. But until each one of us are willing to break that yoke, it will continue to be what it is. But it doesn't have to be. I think that's what Esau figured out. And I think that's what Job figured out. It'll be okay. Whether I've got riches or poverty, as long as I have faith in God, we'll be all right. Because God sees and God hears. Okay? Any prayer requests? Those online, any comments, any questions? Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, Gary, let me show you a preview of Sunday morning. I'll show you this again Sunday. When you look at Jacob and Leah, and you look at the 12 sons of Jacob and Joseph, I didn't put Rachel up there, but Joseph is the baby boy. And man, that's filled with pain. But guess who comes to his rescue? Judah. Judah understood this thing's gone too far. So Judah tries to salvage that mess. But when they get back to the hole, he's gone. It's gone too far. Okay. Somebody has to break out of the stuff. Any prayer requests? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay, we'll keep you in prayer. Anyone else? This is a holiday weekend coming up. Okay. Anyone else? I'm sorry. Grace. Y'all don't know the joke. That's part of my New Year's resolution. Okay. And you're headed back on Friday. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? And you're in St. Louis, right? Okay. Let's pray together. Father, we thank you for watching over each of us. And I just pray tonight as we look at the Bible stories, looking at the ancestry of Job, a man of sorrow, and yet a man filled with faith. Help us, Father, to develop our own personal faith walk with you, regardless of our ancestral history, regardless of the number of times that we may have been counted out, left behind, ignored. Father, I pray that we will look at those times in life as opportunities that you've shown yourself over and over again to be strong and present in our lives. Father, I pray that you'll watch over Nicole as she travels this weekend. Keep her safe as she goes and as she returns. I also pray that you'll watch over Gary as he travels. And I pray also that you'll watch over Grace as she returns to school on Friday. Father, I pray for this country. And we know that nothing goes on unseen by you. And because of that, our trust and our faith rests in what your power can do. I just pray that you give us the patience to endure the hardships, the setbacks that oftentimes are handed to us because of the hardness of the hearts of men. Bless us as we leave this building tonight. And yet we thank you for your grace and your mercy over each of us. Through Christ I pray. Amen. Okay. Those online, thank you for joining us. Brother Stewart, Sister Pam, Sister Renata, Brother Jimmy. I saw Sister Dunbar, but to all of you, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. All righty. Bye-bye.
Good night.